You've heard of kings, of knights, of castles and crowns, but history rarely whispers the truth about the ones who built it, all the peasants, those who lived in filth, froze in silence, and worked until their hands bled. No scrolls recorded their names, no songs were sung in their honor. Yet without them, nothing would have survived. This is medieval history, and today we uncover the brutal truths they never taught you in school. What was life really like for a peasant? The wind brushes the earth like a careful hand, stirring the frostbitten remnants of barley that still stand in tired rows, brittle, broken, forgotten. Winter has not yet arrived in full, but already the ground holds the cold like a secret. Above the valley, a crow cries once, sharp, lonely, and slices through the pale sky, its wings black as old ink. Below, wrapped in smoke-scented wool and silence, a woman kneels. Her hands dig into the stiff soil with a wooden rake, not because the harvest demands it, but because habit does. Her knuckles are cracked and pink from cold, hardened by years that have passed without name or witness. Her fingers remember work, her mind no longer questions. There are no hours here, only light and dark, and the promise of the bell. Behind her, in a cottage bent under its own roof, a child stirs, the straw bed creaks, the air smells of ashes and sweat, and the mother places a hand on the boy's chest, not to wake him, but to bless him. She whispers a prayer in Latin, words she learned by rhythm, not meaning. A lullaby meant not for peace, but protection. Outside, the sky grays deeper. The manor bell has not yet rung, but the village stirs all the same, as if time itself has trained them. The hearth is low. Last night's embers are shy, but not dead. She feeds them dried turf, scraps of grass and moss packed into crude bricks. Wood is not theirs to burn. The forest is forbidden. Even twigs, if found in your pocket, can bring a fine. The pot on the hearth gives off a thin steam, oats in water, no salt, no fat, just enough to quiet a child's belly for a few hours. She eats without taste. Her children do the same. There are no conversations in the morning, only the soft scraping of spoons against wooden bowls and the watchful silence of those who know that each bite has already been accounted for. A sound cuts the air, low, heavy. The manor bell, it tolls not like a church, but like a sentence, slow, hollow, final. 1 note for laborers, 2 for servants, 3 if there's trouble. Today, it is only 1. Her eldest son stands. The boy ties a leather strap around his waist, more string than belt now, and picks up his iron spade. His hands are already calloused, not yet 12. He steps out into the gray without a word, because words do not fill bellies. And still, the woman watches him go, and feels her chest fold inward. Outside, other doors open. Smoke trails begin to rise, like prayers. Children are pulled awake, eyes still bleary. Men with backs bowed by time and stone begin the slow walk to the fields. Women fetch pails, spin wool, gather tools. Life unfolds, not in color, but in shades of duty. There is no school, no teacher, no alphabet. The only thing passed down is survival and silence. The road that winds beyond the trees might as well be the edge of the earth. No one speaks of it. No one asks what lies beyond the horizon, for they know, or think they know. The world is not for them, the cottage in which they live of timber and wattle, patched with straw, stitched with fear, is not theirs. The time they spend, all borrowed, even their bodies, leased to labor. The woman steps outside now, apron tied, back straight, despite the ache. Her job today is not in the field, but at the manor laundry. She will scrub noble garments until her fingers swell with cold, will carry buckets that scald her palms and bleach her skin, but she will not complain, not even in her thoughts, because she remembers what happened to those who did a season ago. A boy had spoken too freely in the tavern, just a few words about bread, about fairness. The next day he was gone, taken to the stocks, then to the forest. No one asked where, no one went after him. Here, the lesson is not taught with books, it is taught with absence. The woman walks past the village well. A girl draws water, her hands trembling from the chill. An older man chops frozen roots with a dull knife. Smoke curls from the smithy, where iron is shaped not for war, but for control. Shackles, hinges, plows, all tools of order. At the manor, she bows low. A steward nods once. She enters the laundry hut, where steam and voices swirl like ghosts. The other women work in rhythm, eyes lowered, lips shut. They do not greet her. They do not need to. They are sisters in silence. Hands sink into hot water. Soap stings old cuts. Linen, wool, velvet. None of it belongs to them, yet they wash it like penance. Somewhere above, noblemen feast and joke. Their laughter drips down the walls like condensation. One woman coughs, another sways from exhaustion. Still, the work continues, because the clock in this world is not made of hours. It is made of tasks, and it never stops. By dusk, her arms are lead, her feet sting from cold and damp. But she walks home with a small loaf in hand, her payment for the day. Her son waits on the threshold, face pale, clothes damp from the field. They say nothing. He steps aside. She enters, and the cottage exhales. She places the bread on the table, tears it into three. No more oats, no more turf. The fire has gone out. But for now, there is bread and breath. She leans against the wall, the same way her mother once did. Her daughter curls into a blanket of stitched rags. Her youngest begins to hum a tune she doesn't recognize. Maybe something he made up, maybe something he dreamed. For a moment, she closes her eyes and remembers something soft, wool on skin, her mother's laugh, the scent of wild garlic in spring. It hurts the remembering because it makes the present sharper. Outside, the wind has returned. It rattles the cottage door, shakes the thatch, but they are used to that now. The wind always comes back, and so does the silence. But deep within it, something stirs, not rebellion, not yet, but longing for more than borrowed mornings, more than brittle barley, more than the sound of chains wrapped in cloth. Tomorrow will come with its bell, its frost, its hollow hunger. But tonight they sleep, and somewhere, far beyond the trees, a wolf howls, not for food, but for freedom. The rain had not stopped since the last star faded. It came soft at first like breath on the skin, but by nightfall, it had turned to a cold, relentless curtain from the heavens. Now, as dawn seeps in through the ashen sky, the road is no longer a road. It is a drowning thing. Mud swells where gravel once held, swallowing boots and hooves and wheels alike. Each step is a prayer, not to sink, not to break, A wooden cart moans beneath the weight of barley sacks. The wheels lurch, wooden spokes thick with mire. 2 oxen, graphic and wide-eyed, push forward with low grunts of exhaustion. Behind them, trailing in their wake like a shadow stretched too thin, walks a boy. His feet are bare, his tunic clings wet to his frame, more rag than cloth. The reins in his hands are slick, yet he grips them with frozen fingers that bleed at the knuckles. 10 winters have passed over him, but already his spine bends like a man twice his age. His name is not important here, only his burden is. Last spring, a cough took his father, a deep, tearing cough that turned to blood, then silence, the kind of silence that hangs after a final breath, when the earth takes back what hunger already claimed. And so the boy walks. 3 days a week, he labors under his father's name. He does not know the law, but he knows its weight, the tax of absence, the inheritance of obedience. For every field sown, for every sack lifted, for every breath drawn, the debt must be paid, in sweat, in grain, in silence. The manor watches him from the hill. It rises from the land like a judgment, stone-faced, unfeeling, wrapped in mist. Its windows are slits, not eyes. Its doors are mouths that never open for peasants. A banner hangs limp in the rain, the red thread washed to brown. At its gates stands the steward, wrapped in a crimson tunic that has never known mud. He counts sacks, calls names. His voice is sharp, nasal, certain, like a blade too clean to be trusted. One by one, families approach and offer their dues, barley, oats, chickens, if they have them. He marks names on a parchment kept dry under an oiled cloth. The boy waits his turn, soaked to the bone. When his name is spoken, his father's name, really, the steward does not look up, just points to the left. The boy nods and moves back in the village. The world holds its breath. Doors creak open just long enough to let someone pass. Faces appear and vanish like ghosts through smoke. No one speaks more than needed. Words are currency, and no one can afford generosity. His mother is there, inside the narrow cottage that leans against the wind like a prayer to long unanswered. Her loom clicks softly. Coarse linen threads pass between her fingers, though the skin there has split, blood dried into the creases. Her lips move in rhythm with the thread, not in speech, but in memory, a song from before the man she loved was laid in wet earth beneath a borrowed shroud. She does not look up when the boy enters. She hears his breath, his shiver. She keeps weaving. The hearth is cold, no turf left. Wood is for the Lord's fire, not theirs. In a corner, a single egg rests on a folded cloth. It will be split 3 ways. A feast. Outside, the priest passes. Robes dry beneath a cloak too fine for these parts. His eyes scan the village, but settle on no one. His prayer book is pressed to his chest like armor. On Sunday, he will speak of divine order, that God has chosen each man his station, that suffering earns salvation, that heaven awaits the humble. But the boy does not look up. Heaven is too far, and the mud does not know mercy. Still, he returns to the cart. He does not cry. He does not ask why. There is no why here, only the doing, the surviving, the rain, the mud, the weight of duty. He grips the wooden frame again and moves on, past the manor, past the gate. toward the granary, where the steward waits with dry parchment and dry hands. Each step is a vow, not of loyalty, but of necessity. The unspoken truth of a peasant's life, that you walk because stopping is death, that you give because taking is punished, that you obey not from love, but because the lash speaks louder than hunger ever could in the distance. A bell tolls, low, hollow, like thunder trapped in stone. It calls not to prayer, but to labor. And so, the boy does not pause. He is one of hundreds, one of thousands. Lives unmarked by scripture, unnamed by history. But here, in the rain, he is the center of the world. A child carrying the weight of a broken order on his shoulders. And though he does not know the word, his every breath is a kind of defiance. The cart groans, the wind picks up, stirring the scent of wet hay, smoke, rot, and in the dimming morning, he vanishes into the gray, a figure swallowed by mud and fog, yet still moving, always moving, because to stop is to disappear, and even the forgotten fight to be remembered. The bell tolls again, slower now, deeper, as if the iron itself grieves for those who rise only to suffer. Its final echo fades into the mist, and the village exhales a breath it has been holding since nightfall. Behind shuttered windows, behind stitched rags and broken doors, life begins again, but without joy, without surprise, only repetition. She clutches her shawl tighter against her chest as she walks, her breath visible like a ghost trailing from her lips. Each step echoes faintly in the silence, the frost beneath her boots cracking like bone. The baker's crumbs still cling to her fingertips, the taste of burnt crust lingering like a memory she's ashamed to have stolen. At home, the hearth has dimmed. Her eldest son, to lean for 13, tends it with hands cracked from gathering wood that grows rarer each winter. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't need to. He knows the weight of the basket. He knows that today will be no different. Places the half-loaf on the table and begins to cut it with the dullest blade, the one that wastes the least. Each slice is thin, barely more than a whisper of wheat and fire. She hands the largest piece to the youngest, who eats in silence, chewing slowly as if the taste might stretch the meal into something more. Her own piece she places on a clean scrap of linen and folds it away, not out of piety, but in case someone knocks, a sick neighbor, a hungry orphan, a steward demanding a tithe. A mother learns to hide kindness in places even she cannot easily reach. Outside, the sky never lifts. It hangs, a constant gray, like wool soaked in sorrow. Somewhere down the road, the blacksmith's hammer rings out, the sound of labor, not progress. Even iron is weary here. By midday, the village green is empty. Chickens peck at old footprints, and smoke coils from chimneys like prayers that never left the earth. A group of children chase one another with sticks, pretending they are knights, their laughter high and wild, a temporary defiance. But even their joy feels borrowed, as if it must be paid back in cold or hunger before nightfall. She sits by the window and threads her needle with care. The cloth is torn from her husband's old tunic, the one he wore to the harvest last year before the fever took him. She mends not because the shirt will be worn again, but because doing so keeps her hands from shaking. The movements are memory, muscle, habit. In this world, women mend what cannot be saved. Evening comes like a thief, suddenly, without warning. The wind pushes through the cracks in the wall, bringing with it the smell of wet hay and distant smoke. She lights a single candle. Its flame dances uncertainly, casting shadows that stretch across the low ceiling like arms reaching for something just out of reach. The children sleep early, wrapped in blankets that barely hold warmth. She watches their faces, searching for signs of dreams. She finds none, only twitching limbs and soft, shivering breaths. She wants to sing like her mother once did, but the songs are gone. Or maybe she is simply too tired to find them. She kneels before the wooden cross, just as she has every night. The floor is cold beneath her knees. She doesn't ask for blessings anymore. Not food, not health, not deliverance. She simply whispers, "See me," nothing more. Just to be seen by a God who feels as distant as summer. Outside, a wolf howls in the woods. Or maybe it's only the wind. In the dark, the difference doesn't matter. And still, she waits for light, for spring, for a day when she wakes and doesn't wonder how many more nights she can survive. She closes her eyes and listens to the silence, broken only by the faint creak of wood, the drip of melting frost, and the breath of children who dream without knowing they dream. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the tolling of the bell, its voice neither cruel nor kind, only constant. And somewhere, another woman will rise in the dark and ask the same questions. And maybe, just maybe, one day, there will be an answer. The bell tolls, once, twice, a third time. Each chime carves the air like a blade, rising through the mist and resting heavy on the roofs of the village below. It is not the call of God, nor the drumbeat of war. It is the sound of ownership, of debt, of duty, of days stolen before they even begin. Ailing hears it before he opens his eyes. He lies on a bed of straw that creaks under the weight of old bones and older burdens. The morning light doesn't reach him, not through the slatted wood and smoke-stained walls of his hut. Cold breath curls from his mouth like ghost silk as he sits up, pressing a calloused hand against the ache in his spine. His first thought is not of salvation or hope. It is of the trench, the corvée, the price of existing on borrowed land. Outside, the village begins to stir, not with joy, nor with haste, but with the slow, reluctant rhythm of men who have learned that resistance is an illusion. A few coughs echo through the frost. Someone swears softly, stepping into icy mud. Wooden doors groan open like ancient mouths. Chickens scatter from the path as the peasants gather, each with a tool slung across his shoulder. Shovels, picks, mattocks worn thin with years of service to someone else's comfort. Alling walks among them, his spade balanced across his shoulder like a burdened cross. The handle is wrapped in brittle leather, stained with old sweat, older blood. He says nothing. Neither does the man beside him, nor the one behind. They have spoken all the words they had long ago, and none of them changed anything. The manor looms above, its stone walls damp with morning condensation. From its tower, the steward watches a silhouette on horseback, still as sculpture, eyes narrowed beneath a fox-fur hood. His presence is a blade tucked beneath velvet. He does not need to shout. His posture is enough. The labor begins. Ailing lowers his spade into the cold earth. The mud resists like flesh. It sucks at the blade, bites at his wrists, numbs his fingers. He digs and digs. Water seeps in around his boots. Trench by trench, the land is reshaped, not for the needs of the village, but to better drain the Lord's fields. The irony burns in every shovel of displaced soil. As they channel water away from the noblemen's orchards, their own barley will drown. A man near Ailing coughs blood into the sleeve of his tunic. No one stops. There is no pause for sickness here, only the steady rhythm of forced endurance. The steward rides past, his boots clean, his voice sharp as frost. Faster. The word falls like a lash, though no whip is raised. The memory of the last punishment is enough. Alling dares not look at the elm near the chapel. The tree still bears the weight of that winter, though the rope is gone. The image, the limp neck, the blackened tongue, the silence of it remains, carved into the minds of all who survived to remember. By midday, the sun hides behind a veil of gray. Ailing sits on a damp rock, chewing a crust of barley bread, left over from yesterday. It is hard enough to break a tooth, though he has none left to lose. He wipes his hands with a cloth once embroidered by softer hands. His wife's hands, before the fever took her 3 winters ago. Her death was not marked by candlelight or song, only the shallow scrape of his spade as he dug her grave beneath a sycamore. He had shaped a rough cross from river stones and prayed it would hold against the wind. No one visits it but him. Sometimes, not even he. The work resumes. The trench deepens, dark and slick with clay. Elaine's muscles scream, but his voice stays buried. Pain is not permitted here, nor dreams, nor rest. The steward watches, his horse steaming in the cold. The peasants obey like shadows, nameless. In the mud by dusk, the bell has long stopped ringing, but its echo carries through every movement. Ailing returns to his hut, fingers split and bleeding beneath caked dirt. The door creaks shut behind him like the closing of a tomb. The hearth is cold. He has no strength to light it. He pours cold beans into a chipped clay bowl and eats slowly, chewing with hollow gums. There is no fire, no candle, only the quiet. And in that quiet, the bell tolls again. Not in the sky, not in the manor tower, but in his mind, a soundless summons, relentless and cruel, reminding him that even silence is owned, that even when the fields lie fallow and the frost blankets every furrow, the debt remains. He stares at the last stub of wax on the table, a candle his wife had once lit while humming a lullaby. He touches it gently, but does not strike the flint. The darkness feels honest tonight. Tomorrow, the trench will grow longer, the steward's eyes will sharpen, the bread will be thinner, and Ailing will rise again, not out of hope, but out of obedience. Because survival here is not a matter of will, it is a habit, an inheritance passed down with each breath and each bruise. Outside, the night wind moves through the village like a thief, rustling thatch and tugging at shutters. Somewhere, a child whimpers in sleep. Somewhere, a dog barks once and falls quiet. And in the chapel, beyond the elm, the candle above the altar flickers low. Tomorrow, the bell will toll again, but the silence that follows, that is where the real story lies. The wind claws at the shutters as twilight bleeds into the village lanes. But inside the forge, there is no darkness, only fire. It burns like a beast fed on iron and breath, red, restless, never full. Sparks rise from its mouth, devouring. the smoke dancing into the rafters, where soot clings like a shadow that never leaves. In the heart of this furnace stands Methu, young, hollow-cheeked eyes, too old for his years. He is not yet 15, but his back already bends like someone twice his age. His fists are calloused, wrists bone-thin, fingers blistered from 1,000 hammer strikes. Every blow is a memory, or maybe a forgetting. His father once stood here, and his father before him, men who passed down neither wealth nor comfort, only the weight of iron and the silence it demands. The hammer in Matthew's grip is heavy, yet he lifts it without thought. Strike, turn, strike again. Iron rings out like a church bell, without prayer, a rhythm of survival, not salvation. Outside, children jeer. Cinderface, they call him, devil child. His skin is stained, his hair always singed at the edges. But he does not respond, not out of fear, out of discipline, out of something colder. His master watches from the shadows, a man of few words and fewer kindnesses. When Matthew errs, the correction comes fast and hard, a knuckle to the jaw, a skipped meal, and still the boy works. Because pain is fleeting, but punishment is forever. He eats alone, crusts of black bread, a sliver of dried onion, a wedge of old cheese that smells of mold and memory. His mother, when she can, brings him scraps of wool to patch his torn tunic, and once, when she dared, a tiny carved bone, polished smooth, shaped like a raven's wing. For luck, she whispered. He hides it under his collar, near his heart, a reminder that someone still believes. The forge groans as dusk settles. The air is thick, metallic. Mattheo pulls a glowing blade from the fire and with slow purpose quenches it in oil. The hiss that erupts is sharp, violent, like a soul resisting its transformation. He watches it closely. Will this piece become a hinge for a barn that stores stolen grain, or a dagger for a hand that knows no mercy? He will never know. The village is built from his labor, but not his will. The smoke here does not rise. It coils. Like memory, like regret, it seeps into lungs, into thought. Every breath Matthew takes carries ash with it. And yet, he inhales, he endures. Outside, the bell tolls faintly, not for him, not for any smith. It calls peasants to the fields, priests to the altar, lords to their wine. But Matthew stays in the forge, where no bell commands and no prayer reaches. This is his cathedral, the anvil, his altar. With each piece he shapes, he carves his name into a world that will never speak it, but in the clanging dark, amid the roar of fire and the rhythm of labor, Matthew finds something others do not. A moment, just a moment, where he is not a peasant, not a child, not a servant, just a creator. And in that moment, the flame does not own him. It obeys as the coals begin to dim and the forge groans with sleep. Matthew looks to the rafters where a raven perches silently in shadow, watching, waiting. The boy grips the bone charm under his collar, not for luck, but for memory, because tomorrow the manor bell will call again, and while others kneel in fields or halls, he will answer with fire. Snow blankets the fields like a shroud, hiding the jagged stubble of last year's harvest. Beneath it lies the silence of things forgotten, hushed seeds, buried roots, the muffled sorrow of labor long spent. The sky above is low and colorless. like an old sheet hung over the face of the sun. Winter has wrapped the world in quiet, but this is not peace. It is a hush before breaking. Inside a cottage, the size of a stable, the breath of 6 souls mingles in the frozen air. Walls of daub and wattle groan against the weight of wind. Smoke curls upward through the hole in the thatch like a ghost seeking escape. There is no chimney, only hope that the smoke will rise, not settle. A clay bowl rests between calloused hands. The soup within is gray and bitter, made of turnips too small and soft to store. The steam carries a scent of earth and ash, the last offerings of a soil that can give no more. This is not a meal, it is a delay. The father bows his head. He speaks grace in Latin, learned by rote, the words dry in his mouth. His children mimic him, not understanding but obeying. Their bellies are hollow drums. One boy's lips are cracked. The girl's eyes do not blink. Their tunics hang loose, patched with linen, torn from burial cloth. Their boots are lined with straw. A single cross hangs above the hearth, crooked and blackened. Christ's eyes are unfinished, or perhaps too tired to see. The youngest, no more than 5, lets out a cough that cuts through the silence like a blade. The mother lays a hand on her daughter's brow. She says nothing, but she knows the fever. Well, it has a voice of its own, soft at first, like a whisper in sleep, then louder, until it drowns out prayers. The priest said it was God's testing. The midwife offered rosemary in a cloth bundle tied with wool. But what the girl needed was bread. What they needed was warmth. They do not cry. Crying wastes water. The father shifts his weight. His bones crackle louder than the fire. Outside, wolves prowl the edge of the clearing. Their prints were seen near the goat pen last week, broad, deliberate, without fear. Hunger makes all creatures bold. The door is barred with a rope and 2 flat stones. It will not hold long if the wolves grow braver. The fire flickers, low and sullen. They've burned the peat too quickly. What little remains must be stretched for nights still to come. Already the air inside is colder than breath. The walls do not keep the wind out. It finds every crack, every flaw. At night, it licks at their skin, sneaking under blankets, coiling around their toes like a warning. It is not just cold, it is a question, an accusation. Why are you still here? The father turns toward the shuttered window, though it lets in no light. Beyond it, up the hill, stands the Lord's hall, built of stone, lit by iron sconces, echoing with the clatter of meat, bones, and laughter. He remembers the sound of it from last Michaelmas feast. But memory is a cruel guest in winter. It brings hunger with it. He does not curse the Lord. To do so would be to curse the chain that binds him to the land, to the past, to the God who placed each man in his place. He dares not think it. He dares not speak. Instead, he lifts the bowl. Its rim is chipped. The soup is cooling. Eat before it cools, he says to his wife, but she shakes her head. The girl first. And so the bowl is passed, spoon by spoon, from father to mother, to child again. Each portion is measured by love, not hunger. The girl with the fever gets 2. Her lips barely part, but the spoon is guided in. Her eyes remain closed. It is a ritual now, a communion of survival, not of salvation. Each night they perform it. Each night they finish with less. The boy beside the fire watches the flames. They hypnotize him. In them, he sees not warmth, but distance, the unreachable dream of a summer that may never come again. He remembers chasing dragonflies in the marsh, remembers apples with wormholes, remembers his sister laughing without coughing. A gust hits the wall, dust falls from the rafters. The cross swings slightly on its nail. The mother hums under her breath, a tune from her childhood. The words are gone, but the melody remains, a thread connecting her to something softer than this cold. The girl stirs, she's warm. The mother whispers, but the warmth is not good. It is the warmth that comes before the end, the kind that sinks into the limbs and makes sleep seem kind. Outside, the wind howls louder. Tomorrow, the father will go to the edge of the woods, where the traps are set. Perhaps the rabbit is still alive, or perhaps the wolves have gotten there first. Either way, it will not be enough. He will pass the Lord's steward on the road. The man will ride a horse blanketed in wool, his gloves fur-lined. He will nod, but not stop. The father will nod back. No words will be exchanged. Words cost too much. Inside, the soup is finished, the bowl wiped clean with crusts as hard as stone. The children lie down, one atop the other, for warmth. Straw mattresses offer little comfort. The mother wraps the youngest in her arms. She does not sleep. The father stares into the fire until it fades. He listens for wolves. He listens for breath, silence, but not peace. In the morning, the world will still be cold, the land still barren, but the sun might break through the cloud just enough to touch the frost, to remind them that even in the darkest seasons, light does not forget, and from that light they will rise, not because they believe, but because there is no other choice. The girl will wake, or she won't. The goat will give milk, or it won't. The snow will melt, or it won't. But the rope will hold. The soup will be made. The cross will hang crooked on the wall. And the wind will still whisper. But one day, it might whisper something new, something like a promise. Before the rooster stirs the dawn, before even the frost has finished writing its silver script across the window pane, she is awake. The fire is out, the world is quiet, and her bones, they remember. Isabit, that is her name, a name spoken, only in whispers, never inked, never carved. The kind of name that slips through time like water through fingers. She has no surname, no lineage to boast, no land to claim, no seal on parchment to declare she ever belonged. Only the thick pads on her palms, and the unyielding spine of someone who was never taught how to bend without breaking. In her cottage of moss and smoke, she kneels before the loom. The wood creaks, the thread waits, the candle flickers like it fears the dark. The air is heavy with wool and ash, with the dampness of a life spent near fire and mud. Her shawl is rough against her collarbone, woven by her own hand, dyed with berry and bark, the colors of bruise and dusk. She begins to spin. This is not just work. This is the keeping of memory. This is the language of women no one ever taught to speak. She was born in winter by a river that froze so fast the midwife feared the ice would take her breath before her first cry. But she survived. That, they all agree, is miracle enough. Her mother fed her nettle tea when there was no milk, rubbed crushed thyme into her gums, taught her to boil bark for dye and wrap fever with damp linen and whispered prayer. And from her mother, she learned silence, not the silence of shame, the silence of knowing, of watching, of waiting, of listening to the world without needing to answer it. By the time Isabet was 10, her fingers knew how to stitch seams so tight no water could slip through. By 15, she could barter wool for soap with a glance. And by 20, she was the one mothers came to when the babies wouldn't breathe or the blood wouldn't stop. She dyes her thread with crushed berries, blues so deep they remember the night sky, reds that echo blood in snow. She sharpens knives when the men are too drunk to trust their own hands. She sews robes for the priest whose gaze never quite meets hers. And behind her house she grows feverfew and yarrow and rue, not in rows but in spirals, like the old ways. The priest says it smells of witches. She says nothing. She always says nothing, but she watches how even he avoids the edge of her garden, how his voice changes when the wind carries the scent of sage and iron and salt. The village does not call her healer. They do not call her witch. They do not call her anything at all, because names carry power. And power frightens those who've never tasted it. There are rumors, of course there are, that long ago, before her hands were so lined, she loved a scribe from the abbey, that he read her psalms beneath the linden trees and promised her parchment with her name, written like a queen's. But parchment costs more than a cow, and cows die when the rains don't come. So he left, taking his ink and his promises. With him since then, she hums only at night, low and soft, like wind through hollow bone. Songs with no words, only breath. The kind of song that curls into the corners of dreams and makes children stir in their sleep. She is not holy, not cursed, not remembered. She is necessary, like the well that never runs clear, like the fire that smokes more than it warms, like the bread made with barley because the wheat never came. The village does not bless her, but when fever comes, they knock on her door. When a cow births early, they leave a bowl of milk at her threshold. When the war-torn and wind-starved return, they seek her herbs before they seek their wives. She is not called wise, she is not called kind, she is not called broken, only present, always present and still on certain nights. When even the moon seems afraid to show its face, she sings, not the hymns of the chapel, not the songs of the field, but something older, a language that drips from her tongue like oil and blood and smoke, a tongue no one taught her, a song no one gave her. And when she sings, the shadows seem to pause, the trees hush, the wind forgets to move. This song does not belong to kings, not to priests, not even to mothers, only to her, to the women who stitched the world's wounds in silence, to the hands that spun thread from hunger and balm from ash, to the ones who loved without being remembered and lived without being named, to the women who survived without witness and still held the world together, stitch by stitch, breath by breath, night by night, as Isabet lifts her spindle once more, the candle gutters. Outside, the frost retreats just a little, and from the east, light begins to seep in like forgiveness. What comes next will not be gentle, but for now she spins, she endures, and in the stillness between breath and dawn, the world holds its shape just a little longer. They lived nameless beneath the shadow of castles, not saints, not sinners, just hands in the dirt, their backs broke where kingdoms rose, their silence filled the space between crown and church knell. Songs were sung for them, no records kept, and yet, without them, the world would have starved. This is their truth, raw, unfiltered, forgotten by time, but not by Usavi, just glimpsed, the real Middle Ages. And we've only just begun stay with medieval history, where every whisper of the past still echoes and every untold story still matters.